Very good afternoon, friends. I'm Sabyasachi Bharti on behalf of CMS VATAVARAN. I welcome you all on this special session in conversation with Meet the Filmmaker. You know that every day from 4 to 5, we discuss about the filmmaking process of some enlightened filmmaker. Uh, and today also, we are having wonderful filmmaker. I can say that he is one of the most prominent filmmaker of our time, and he is a national award winning filmmaker. He is also the CMS-UNEP Prithvi Ratna Lifetime Achievement Awardee. Uh, None other than Krishnendu Bose. I won't be talking a lot about Krishnendu Bose this and Krishnendu Bose that, because you all know who Krishnendu Bose is. Uh, and I can say that I'm his fan since 2008. When in 2008 I was able to uh, see, I came across his films, and then uh, they were really stunning. They were really asking some very important questions, and from that day onwards, I'm a big fan of Sir. So without any delay, let me have the honor to welcome Krishnendu sir. Uh,
Hi.
Very good afternoon, Krishnendu sir.
Hi. Good afternoon, Sir Visachi.
Yeah.
It's a pleasure to be on your show, and this festival is very close to me, very dear to me for many years. I've been a part of it, part of this in many ways,
Yes.
not just contributing my films, but also planning and advising it. And this is one of the, I think, the only festival, international nature festival of wildlife and conservation in India, I think. So congratulations, and
Thank you very much, sir.
yeah.
Sir, this time, as you know, that we are doing the festival in hybrid mode, and the films can be watched freely on the India Science OTT channel. And your film, that was the film of the day today, and other of the three nominated films of yours are also there on the India Science OTT channel, where people can go and people can watch the films. Friends, I must I request you to go to the channel India Science OTT and watch wonderful film series. So sir, today what we are going to talk about the series Heroes of the Wild Frontiers, because this time there are three different films who had been nominated in the festival from the series. So before we start talking about the series, let me play intro of the series. I think I'm having some problem.
I, Krishnendu and Ashvika, take you this time to Sundarban's Tiger Reserve to explore the brittle coexistence of humans with tigers. This was our home for the next few days. The Sundarbans is the largest mangrove forest in the world. And here, in this intricate maze of salt waterways and narrow creeks, the Royal Bengal tiger rules. In these hostile forests, around 30 people get killed every year due to tiger attacks. The forests are lined with villages across the river. Tigers, being powerful swimmers, used to swim stealthily to the villages looking for food. And what would follow was mayhem. The conflict between tigers and humans, it must be said, is prevalent all over India. And it is only getting worse. Tigers often have no choice but to spill out of their habitats and either kill or get killed. But the forest staff in Sundarbans has handled this conflict very effectively. It's taken 15 years of exacting work to stop the tigers from straying into the villages. The calm and courageous Rajiv Noshkar is one face of this gradual change.
So, generally, when we talk about conservation, we talk about wildlife protection, we talk about biodiversity. Uh, we we abuse, we talk about the incompetency of the forest department, incompetency of the wildlife division, incompetency of the people who are working in the forest department. Probably this is the first time I think happening in India that anyone had made a series on these forest guards. So I had gone through all the six films of yours, and as you know that last year when we were doing a traveling festival on the with the UNDP Secure Himalaya project in four different Himalayan cities, that was Ladakh and Kelong, Shimla, and Uttarkashi and Sikkim. We had also screened your film on snow leopard, because the Secure Himalaya project is about the snow leopard. The films are really well made, and they talk about a very different aspect, when we in how difficult condition these wildlife guards work, these wildlife people work. It's happening first time. So let us kindly let us know that why you have decided to make the film which is talking about these wildlife guards, because when we talk about Krishnendu Bose, yes, we talk about a lot of wildlife activity, we also talk about the developmental film, but the first time talking about the people who are behind the curtain taking care of these wildlife conservation.
Yeah, so this is a bit of a personal sort of journey, personal tribute to my
Mhm.
own understanding of Indian forests, my own learning of Indian forests. I've been doing this for the last 30 years, making wildlife conservation films. And in these 30 years, forest guards and wildlife guards is a, a body of people I've always watched, I've always admired, and they've helped me immensely in my understanding and a lot of my films. So I was meaning to make this kind of a series for a long time, just to pay my tribute and respect, and also to highlight this point in our Indian conservation, that they are the frontline soldiers. They have been protecting the wildlife, whatever you see today, whatever the forest, whatever the wildlife you enjoy when you go out in the forest, Indian forest. They are the people who are frontline army, and I'm using the word army in a very deliberate way. Uh, and they have laid out their lives out there, in floods, in rain, in searing heat of Rajasthan. Sometimes
Yes.
with just a stick,
Mhm.
or not even that. They are traveling miles. They are looking at probably guarding 100 square kilometers all by themselves. So I've seen that with my own eyes in the last many years I've been there. And this was my little effort to pay my respect and tribute to
Mhm.
to this whole set of people.
So how you you decided, what was the point when you decided that, look, I am making a lot of wildlife and conservation film, it's the time to give my tribute to these unsung heroes of the forest. What was that, that it was some incident or something which triggers that now this is the time कि अब तो हमको करना है.
Well, you also answered a little bit of this when you introducing the series. I have been also a part of filmmakers or people who have looked at conservation a little critically, not just forest department, but generally, people of state governments, how we have handled conservation. So over the years, I've made a lot of films which are looking critically and suggesting new ways of moving forward. And I've been also, if you watch my films are in this area of people and conservation. I'm not a blue chip
Yes.
wildlife filmmaker.
Yes.
I,
Yes.
I don't make those kind of films. Maybe I'm not competent to make those beautiful, very
No, sir.
difficult films of pure wildlife. But my interest more lies in the cusp, in the overlap of wildlife, forest, and people. And I always found the forest guard to be living in that cusp, because there are people
Mhm.
who come inside the forest, some legally, some illegally. They're dealing with that. A lot of forests also overlap with villages, the fringe forest, the
Mhm.
reserve forest,
Yes.
and you're constantly interacting with the people.
Yes.
So, so during my experience, I mean, there probably was not one single point that I get up in the morning one day and say, "Wow, I need to
Mhm.
make this film." But
Mhm.
I've also had friends and organizations like Sanctuary and Anish Anderia and so many other people,
Yes.
WWF. They're all
Yes.
regarded and honored
Mhm.
forest guards and given awards and
Yes.
things like that. But I've always
Yes.
wondered why films are not being made, because somewhere films I
Yes.
feel can reach out to a larger audience and
Yes.
very strong. They can make
Yes.
very strong statements. So I
Yes.
just decided that I should now make make this film. It took me some time actually, a couple of years
Yes.
actually to
Yes.
also get funding for this.
Yes.
Because then I thought I should go back to people who have put their life and their work in it. People like
Yes.
Anish and WWF and Vivek
Yes.
Menon and all these people.
Yes.
So
Yes.
and they were I was very privileged to
Mhm.
get their support and a little bit of
Mhm.
funds from all these organizations
Yes.
and ONGC as a CSR initiative.
Mhm.
Um, so I got a bit of funds. Discovery came in as a broadcast partner, so they
Mhm.
helped out in putting those films because after all, end of the day, you need somebody to show your film. So
Yes.
Discovery was magnanimous in coming and offering that platform. So overall,
Mhm.
it quite worked. So it took me a year to garner the funds and get everybody
Mhm.
together. It took me
Mhm.
another year to to make the film. So it
Yes.
took me about 2 years, and finally by 2019 September,
Yes.
I finished.
So it's a six-part series. Like you had so how you decided that in these six parts, which part of the of the country I have to include, and why
Yeah.
only these six six forest guards, or six biodiversity hotspots.
Yeah. Actually, I wanted to do 12 at least, but then nobody came forward and funded the next set of six films. But anyway, my point was that in the first six, I would have liked to go to different ecoregions, different kind of challenges, which would throw up different challenges. Like Ladakh, for instance, it's very very
Yes.
different than an Andaman, or
Hmm.
Sundarban would be very different than a grassland like Kaziranga.
Hmm.
So I wanted to go out to different ecoregions, different challenges, different
Hmm.
way people meet those
Hmm.
challenges, and of
Hmm.
course the characters. I was very interested in choosing forest guards and wildlife guards who are characters by themselves. They are very,
Hmm.
some of them are very lively characters. Some of them are very sage-like characters, like the Khenrub of Ladakh. He's a wildlife guard there, and he talks like a very wise man about climate change and how people should change their life and attitude. And also, some of the forest guards I've got on this series, for them, it's been a life-changing kind of experience
Hmm.
to work as a
Hmm.
forest guard. Like Mohammed, in
Yes.
Andaman,
Andaman. Yes.
he's an engineer. So he chucked up
Hmm.
his job and he wanted to be in the forest and in that kind of a natural surrounding.
Hmm.
And he just joined as a forest guard, as a wildlife guard, and his life changed, completely. And half his life is now underwater. So So those were the reasons to choose different characters, different regions, different forests for the series.
So before we talk more about the thing, the clip we play was from the Sundarban thing. Now I want to, with your permission, play a general clip which is about the series as a whole.
Yeah.
They are the real defenders of the wild, putting their lives in danger to save the last of the endangered. We track them through the deep waters to the high mountains, from the mangroves to the grasslands. They are everywhere. Soldiers fighting to keep our forests secure. They are the frontline forest staff of India.
Yeah, so that was, very nicely done series, I must say. So, sir, let's talk about the series, one to one. So, like Battle of the Horn. So it's based in Kaziranga, where you are talking about, uh, a conflict which is going on, the rhino and the people, and how these forest guards are trying to save. So then again there was another, so there are six different part. So which part was most difficult for you to shoot to complete?
Um, they all had their own challenges.
Yeah.
I can't sort of pinpoint anyone, but I mean, yeah, maybe physically, Ladakh was kind of tough because for obvious reasons, you're climbing at
Hmm.
12,000, 13,000 feet, it's
Hmm.
in air, and sometimes one is traversing very narrow
Hmm.
mountain paths, all
Hmm.
broken and all very wobbly. So those were, yeah, Ladakh was a bit physically tough, but I would say the possibly one of the most exciting places is Sundarban, of course.
Hmm.
I think that is where everybody wants to be at some point of time in life.
Yes.
If you are doing wildlife conservation in
Hmm.
India and even the world, I suppose it's a very exciting place and a little I won't say dangerous, but you got to be careful there. All those tigers out there. Um, you got to be a bit cautious,
Ji.
and
So
the crocodiles
generally,
and bears too.
yeah. So generally, what is the process of your whole shooting? Like, you develop a full script, or you develop just a working script, and then you go. What is the research process? Because yes, it may be, looking very beautiful on the TV screen or on the laptop, sitting in a AC room. But yeah, the situation on ground must be very difficult. Then. So how you were doing the things there, and can you share with us some of the difficulties or some of the challenging movement of the this Sundarban film?
Yeah, I mean, for all the students of cinema, young filmmakers out there who are listening to this, I must say that wildlife, as Sabyasachi said, it looks very beautiful and very nice, but it is very tough to get into the forest and because nothing is actually in your control there. If you're doing a documentary or a fiction, a lot of things are in your control. But here, whatever script you may write, you may not find the animal in like 2 weeks, and it's not easy. And then forest department has restrictions in where you can travel, what you can do, what you can't do. So within that, you have to realize your dreams, your script, your film. So it's overall tough, I think. But then, of course,
Mhm.
I do it because I love doing it. I'm passionate about taking this film. So the toughness is actually the challenges are part of
Mhm.
filmmaking, which you love actually. So
Yeah.
when you ask me the process of filmmaking, the documentaries, I feel, the way I've learned documentaries is that everything should not be fixed and scripted. And so a lot of my documentaries, I keep it open.
Hmm.
I keep it floating for things to happen on ground, and especially interviews. You don't know what people are going to say. How are they going to open up in front of the camera? How much of a relationship you've built with them, so that they
Hmm.
can tell you personal stories. So we do spend a lot of time in preparation, in recce's and research,
Hmm.
and creating characters, talking to them about their personal lives, so that we build a relationship before we turn on the camera.
Okay.
So once we land, because always, if you see the whole process of filmmaking, any film,
Yeah.
a documentary, fiction, anything, the shooting part is always probably about 20% of the
Hmm.
entire time you spend and the resources you spend
Hmm.
on on a film. So if you're spending a fifth of your time on shooting, on filming, actual filming, it becomes very critical that that 20% of time you're
Hmm.
absolutely ready for it. And for
Hmm.
that you have to do a lot of prep work, a lot of research, and kind of, even if loose scripting, but you should know what where you're going with your film. So we do
Hmm.
all that, and we as I said, we spend a lot of time and we give a lot of importance to the pre-production and research work and scripting work.
Hmm.
And once you go there, like in this
Hmm.
film, for instance, we just had about 8 days to
Hmm.
film any of these episodes. With that kind of wildlife which you see in the series, is not easy.
Hmm. Yes.
So we would research the season, that because we are pretty much filming almost like 6 months from winters to summer. So
Hmm.
we would place each episode, each forest, in the time it's best to see the wildlife, or
Hmm.
if we have that kind of a dynamic. So we would research that. And the season and the temperature and the foliage and the visuals and the look, you know, we would do that. And like for instance, North Bengal episode, we know the crop season uh, starts around September, October, and the peak crop rating of elephants in North Bengal is about end of October, early November, mid-November. So that's the time we went. Ideally, a BBC or Nat Geo film will stay there for 2 months. So we had only 7 days. So
Hmm.
we selected the best time, given our resources, to go there and to get conflict, which we did. So similarly, we would select these times and go, and wildlife also, you need hell of a lot of luck,
Hmm.
fantastic amount of luck. Like we
Yes.
got a leatherback turtle in Andaman, which is pretty difficult to get. You can sit for 7 days in the hatching season, in that, you know,
Hmm.
and calculate all your timings and moves and stuff like
Hmm.
that, and still you may not find one. But
Hmm.
we found a beautiful leatherback turtle, and which gave
Hmm.
us about 3 hours while she
Hmm.
was laying her eggs, and we were all very cautious that we wouldn't disturb it. We
Hmm.
were very far, and we were using our lenses for that without disturbing. Very few of us were around, and she gave us, we were privileged to be with her for about 2 hours while she laid all her eggs, covered it up, and went back to the sea.
One thing, sir, one question which is coming in my mind is like, uh, where when you are doing in an open space or in a city or in a village, you had a time and people to taking care of all these heavy equipments, gears, cameras. But shooting in Sundarbans, in the dense jungle and in the delta, how you were managing these equipments, like if and what kind of equipment you were carrying, and seeing that you have to shoot in a delta area, had you modified something like, look, we won't be taking big bulky uh, cameras here, we will go with the smaller one, like how you decide and what kind of the equipments you use during the shooting in different part of India
Yeah,
including this?
it's a very, very good question because Sundarbans, you're 100% time shooting, filming from the boat, and the boat is constantly wobbly, and then it's very difficult to put on the tripod like when you are on the land and put up big lenses and film. It's very difficult. So we had cameras with very good stabilizers, and some of the shoots we are doing handheld, so that somewhere with the jerks of the boat and the water, you're also adjusting to that. On a tripod, it becomes very difficult, to adjust. So with a good stabilizer, sometimes we were using tripods, but then we would get to the side and anchor. But then that's also not advisable because if you're going closer to the bank and the mud flats, um, sometimes some mishap can happen and you can get tiger accidents and stuff like that. So we would go on a low tide situation. So we would do the timings of low tide and high tide. So low tide will you can see the banks, mud flats for about say 40 meters. So even if something is coming your way, you still have time to get out and you get a warning. But otherwise, high tide situation, the foliage starts, I mean, it's kissing your boat, so you can't see anything. So those are the calculations we are making. But once actually we got down in the forest and we went with the forest guard. We were tracking a set of poachers. That is the sort of footprint of human footprint. So they were tracking and we went with them. And yeah, that part was scary. That part, I mean, it is in the film. If you see our presenter, Shrika, and the forest guards, everybody is looking over the shoulder and they're kind of guarding us. And so, yeah, I think you've gone on mute. Answer you. You're on mute. What is that?
So, sir, what I was saying that all these six episodes in the series, they are uh, totally different. Like the the area, the geography of the episode of Hemis, National Park, and is was totally 100% different than the Sundarbans, and was different than the Andaman Nicobar one, and was different than to the other one, Kaziranga. So every time you must have come up with, you have to deal with a whole set of new challenge. So how you were dealing with, like, so you had sent a advanced research team to all these areas, and then you decided, or you were changing the equipment, or the kind of equipment, or kind of team, new team for every place. So what was it, sir?
No, actually, I couldn't afford to change teams. I mean, I never change teams because the team should be the same and they have that camaraderie and the knowledge and the experience from one to the other, so they grow in their
Hmm.
in their skills and experience. So I would never change the teams. But we already had I already had experiences with some places like Sundarbans I've filmed in earlier, Kaziranga I've filmed in earlier. A few of those places I've worked earlier, so I know the conditions. But also, as you rightly say, there was this colleague, Dharma Singh, who is a very well experienced sort of wildlifer and been working with me
Yes.
for many years. So he would go out ahead of the shooting crew, and
Hmm.
he would go out and make an assessment and make notes, and I would go out with him sometimes. So we would spend, as I said, considerable amount of time in researching, talking to people, getting permits, and making our basically doing our homework of how can we deal with this new kind of terrain. So this is in Kaziranga. Um,
Yes.
there was always, because it's flat terrain, there's always
Yeah.
this chance of an attack by rhino.
Yes.
And again in the film, it's there. There are a couple of guys who got very annoyed with us as filmmakers. They gave us some warnings and we didn't heed. I think they got very angry with us. So they were like almost banging into our jeep. Thankfully, we were always filming. That's one motto you learn as a filmmaker, that keep your camera rolling, whatever happens. So we got some really interesting, very close shades. Uh, so we know that, if it's tigers in Sundarban, then it's rhinos in Kaziranga. So you got to be careful. And maybe there's stingrays when you dive underwater in Amazon.
Mhm.
So you got to be you got to be knowledgeable and mindful of all the challenges, of the dangers, of the cautious, the caution you got to bring about in any part. Like you're saying again and again, they're so different. All the six ecoregions of forest are so different that as I mean, I was trying to capture that through camera, but as behind the scene, the crew also needs to be adjusting to
Yes.
that and do your homework well.
So, can you share with us what was the most difficult, you know, uh, you know, area to shoot with, and uh, if you can share with us the most difficult moment during whole shoot where you thought, oh, why I decided to make this? This is feeling like impossible, or it's extremely dangerous, something like that.
I don't know about the dangerous part, but in my 30 years, this moment has come many times, very often. That why the hell am I here? I can't. You don't get to see a tiger for weeks, and you don't have the money. That's the whole thing, because my films, they are not big budget films and well funded. I'm always struggling for fun, and then fun become time you're spending in the forest.
Yes.
Um, but we always wanted to see the snow leopard and film it. Again, I never had those lenses and cameras and time, so that I mean, snow leopard. If you want to film, you need to spend at least maybe 3 4 weeks, if not 2 months, to get a good shot of snow leopard. It is
Yeah.
impossible for us. We had like 7 days, 10 days. So we climbed a kind of a 1,000 meter hilltop where I wanted to take the master shot of the film. Like when the caption comes, you've seen
Yes.
center of the forest guard is standing on the top, and there is a drone which is covering
Yes.
him like that. That was my
Yes.
dream shot. But I had to cover, we all had to sort of climb up in thin air about 1,000 meters. So we did that, and we were like flat out for about half an hour, and then we caught our breath and we started shooting various drone shots, blah blah blah. So at about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, we finished, and we all climbed down. And I was probably the last person to climb down, because the rest of the gang, I mean, the average age of my crew was about 35, and I'm way above that. So I was probably the last guy to come down. And as I had just come down, and there was a little road on which our jeeps and everything was standing. Just as I came down, everybody, there were some locals also out there, and they started screaming, Shan, Shan, Shan. And we just looked back, and then we saw the snow leopard just where we were there. We just
Oh,
crossed it.
yeah.
So what was happening is, perhaps, it was waiting for us to get down. It was probably, it was time for it to go for food, or, just to go back to the other side or something. And so the exciting part for us was that while we were there, all of us, this guy was watching us, hidden
Yeah.
in,
Yeah.
in the shrubs or somewhere. So that was the most exciting part, and we actually saw the slow leopard. Later on,
Mhm.
actually, we got a chance to even film it, but very far. We put our big lenses, and we were on a stable ground, and we put our
Mhm.
big lenses, and we got a faint glimpse of it. But
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, that's all we could manage.
Yeah. So, coming out of the filming part, now wanted to know, like you had worked very closely with the forest guards, with the forest officials during making these films, and these films are about their work also. So now, like the way you were looking into their work, or a department as a whole, have you uh, is there any change in your thoughts regarding their efforts before making this film and after this film? Like the way you were, criticizing them, and now you will criticize them, will there will some difference because now you know like how they are working and how, and what resources they are working with?
See, when you are critical of someone, it is not that you don't respect their work. You
Mhm.
you are critical because you love your forest, love your wildlife, and you want things to improve.
Yes.
It's for the good of everybody. Is that why you're critical? Nothing else. If some of my friends have been a little critical, it's because of that. But I always found, personally, I always found forest department to be one of the most difficult places to work in for a forest official, for a government officer. It's the most difficult place to work in because on both sides you are sandwiched. Forest is basically free for all, you know.
Yes.
So when you need to build a dam, you can use a part of the forest and deluge the part with water, overrun water. When you want to build a road, you can build the road through the forest. So it's a kind of a free for all, and the people who are actually protecting it, and some of them are giving their lives for it. If they're very strict about it, right? Then there is a whole protest from the people. You become a bad guy. You get beaten up.
Mhm.
Some people get killed.
Mhm.
And on the other side, there is politicians.
Mhm.
They give a call to the forest chief and say, ये क्या हो रहा है? You know, मेरे लोगों को अंदर क्यों नहीं जाने दे रहे? सर ये फॉरेस्ट को बचाना है, यहाँ पर ये है, आपको भेड़ बकरी लेके या गाय लेके आप नहीं जा सकते. नहीं नहीं नहीं, ये तो गलत बात है, आप एक छोड़ दो उनको. So, on this side, on one side, they are pressurized by the state, and on the
Yeah.
other side, they get beaten up by the people. So they are in a place where it's always a very thankless kind of a job. So over the years, one understands the pressure they have been working, and to be very honest and to give the due where it's due, India's conservation has been fantastic actually. There
Mhm.
have been problems. There are hell of a room for improvement. The engagement and the urgency to conserve more and better is huge. All of that. Having said that, if you just look at the forests we have today, look at the tigers we have today, look at the animals we have today. Many countries, especially in Asia, in Southeast
Mhm.
Asia and South Asia, the forests are gone, the animals are gone, they're extinct, they're over. Hey, look at tigers. Tiger numbers are rising. Of
Mhm.
course, that's also become a problem now. But that's a,
Mhm.
that's a different story. Also, it's a management problem. How do you manage your
Mhm.
your excess population? But it is rising. That means there is an adequate amount of protection. The forests are still intact. You still got 4%, 3-4% of the landmass locked in into some kind of a sort of
Mhm.
protection, which anyone can't go and just
Mhm.
take it off. So, I mean, I think we have done fantastically well, wonderfully well as
Yeah.
compared to the world. But of course,
Mhm.
one should, this whole balance of growth, of economic growth,
Mhm.
industrialization, infrastructure, and this whole thing about clean air and having your greens intact. That balance is a very tightrope balance, which is lost by most of the countries. So one should say that very emphatically that battle is lost worldwide. In India and some
Yes.
few other countries, they still manage to hold on, and there's still a conversation. Most of the countries, there's no conversation because there are no forests, there are no animals. You can just take up your gun and shoot a puma in the US. If it's like 300 meters anywhere in your sight, you can just shoot it.
Mhm.
In India,
Mhm.
you still go to jail. You
Yes.
can be prosecuted. So I think we have done wonderfully well, relatively, and there's always hope. So when you say that there is criticism, there's a lot of goodwill, there's a lot of respect, there's a lot of positives.
Yeah. Now, sir, let us talk something different apart from this series. As before, starting of the session, we were talking about like climate change and gender and all these things. I know that you are, for last so many years you worked on this gender related, the environment and gender relationship, the environmental problem. Like I remember, probably you may also remember, in 2008 when I first, what I was saying, that I'm watching your film since 2008. Uh, uh, in 2008 we get in touch. I was certainly working for some other, online film festival, Culture and Plug, probably you remember. And then we talked to you regarding your film Dance with Hands Held Tight, and it got, best critics award for the best art film in 2008 or 9 perhaps. So from that 2008 2009 till 2022, you must have seen this climate change or the environmental problem, going on, becoming more, the climate change is becoming more problematic, the and and you must have seen its impact on various, stakeholders of the society, including the women. So wanted to understand your observation during all these, like, 30 year of your filmmaking, like, if any kind of environmental or biodiversity problem or a climate related problem, how it's affecting gender means women, how it's affecting women, because your film, this Dance with Handle Tight, is talking about women in working in the agriculture field and another field. So you had a keen interest into it, so wanted to know your take into it. Like, is, as one question I'm asking everyone, because we are going to, talk about it more often, like how climate change is now only, not only affect, it's not environmental problem, but it's also a gender problem, and how it's affecting the women as such, working in different sector, whether it's environmental sector, whether it's switching sector, or any other sector. Even if there is some migration that is climate related migration, it's women who suffers most. What's your thought about it, sir, and what is your observation during these 30 years?
Well, I should, at the outset, I should say I'm no expert on climate change, neither am I expert on gender. So I can only talk about my own experience, what I have seen,
Yes,
and
sir.
the films I've made. I've
Yes.
made largely two films which are exclusively kind of focused on this,
Yes.
Hand and Tight, as you said, and that was 2005 actually. I made this film, and the second one
Yes.
I made in 2014 called Missing, which got an award in the Casselle Italian Film Festival, the
Yes.
Best
Yes.
Director's Award, and all that. So, I mean, what I'm going to say is a very basic sort of thing which everybody knows. Women are the gender, the people who actually interact with nature, natural resources.
Mhm.
If you look at in rural areas, I'm talking about in agricultural society. If you're talking about collection of fodder, if
Mhm.
you're talking about collection of fuel wood, if you're talking about agriculture, the major labor force in agriculture in India is women. So they are always interacting with natural resources for their
Mhm.
livelihood, for their existence, for their home and hearth. So if anything happens to the natural world,
Mhm.
so there is no prizes for guessing who's going to be impacted more, the man or the
Mhm.
woman. If there's
Mhm.
no water, the woman goes to fetch water. And each year, maybe each season, the distance increases because the water is kind of going further and further away. The water
Yes.
table is going down and down. The rivers are
Yes.
getting dry. So it is common sense to understand this next this relationship, this
Yes.
overlap between natural resources, nature, and women. But somehow, unfortunately, the policymakers, the people of this country, the powers that we haven't understood. Because in the policy, if you look at, say, natural resources, or if you look at land holding, if you
Yes.
look at ownership of land, for instance, now things are changing at the fringes, but women couldn't, couldn't have land in their name. Or when it's coming down the family
Yes.
ownership, women don't. women, I mean, now of course things are changing, but very slowly. Like in panchayat, women were not sarpanch, didn't have been sarpanch like 50 years ago. So, I'll just quote two or three examples from my experience. And because they are they are interacting with nature and natural resources, they are also a repository of knowledge,
Yes.
right? Over the years, over centuries, they are tilling the land, they're going to the forest, they're plucking
Mhm.
fruits and grasses and fodder. So they are also a repository of knowledge. So we were filming in Arunachal Pradesh in
Mhm.
a place called Zero, where
Yeah.
Apatani tribe of women, it's predominantly women, it's all women farmers, and they
Mhm.
grow some 35 different variety of rice paddy.
Ji.
So just imagine the kind of knowledge systems they have over the years. Then I was in Gorakhpur in East UP, and I was talking to this woman farmer, and she was explaining Jalvayu Parivartan, climate change, in her own native language, in her own understanding and vocabulary. It was fascinating. So she was telling me, and she did this, and she put up her finger up in the sky, and she said, पहले जो है हवा जहाँ से आती थी दक्षिण की तरफ और नमी होती थी हवा में एंड उन्हीं से फिर पता लग जाता था कितनी नमी है अभी जो है ना हवा दक्षिण से नहीं आती है 11 बजे इस सीजन पे या सुबह के टाइम में आती थी अभी इस
Mhm.
जगह से आती है और नमी नहीं होती है तो हमारे जो खेत है हमारे जो वीट गेहूं है वो नमी नहीं होने के कारण वो नहीं पनप पाते you know so she's
Ji.
explaining to me climate change in her
Mhm.
own experiential way and you
Yes.
have scientists doing modeling and things like that. While that is
Yes.
very important, this
Yes.
knowledge are equally important because this is vanishing very
Yes.
fast, you know. And they were growing. They had brought back drought-resistant wheat variety, and they were growing that. I'm talking about 2014, and they were growing that. And so she bears the brunt of climate change. She's the repository of knowledge, and also she's at the forefront of innovation. So that is how women are important in my mind, in my experience. I have seen these very strong women. They are constantly trying to innovate, trying to fight climate change,
Mhm. Mhm.
trying to adapt to climate change with their
Mhm.
knowledge system, basically.
Yes. 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 Sir, you had a very long relationship with this Sundarbans. आपने उस पे बहुत सारी फिल्में भी बनाई. You had made so many films. Uh, have you seen the effect of this global warming, climate change in Sundarban in these years? And if yes, like what are the effects you are seeing them?
See, there are cyclones every year. I think the frequency may just have increased. I'm not quoting data here. I don't know, but I just feel that maybe they're the same or they just increased a little bit. The water level has definitely risen, and
Okay.
some of the little islands have gone underwater. But
Mhm.
also maybe there is this whole dynamic there where old land it goes under and new land appears somewhere else. So there is a dynamic. So there are two schools of thought. One says that mm, the water has risen, level has risen, and Sundarban parts of it is going underwater. And there's another school of thought. Experts say that some other landmass is coming up. But the greatest thing about Sundarbans is that the protection people give it, along
Mhm.
with the forest department, the forest, the mangroves are still there. You know, they are protected and they are there as it was before. And that
Mhm.
I think is a major bulwark against the cyclones to hit even a
Mhm.
place like Calcutta, which is 100 kilometers away.
Mhm.
The strength, the way the wind blows and the cyclones happen in that area of the world. If there was no Sundarban, if there was no mangrove curtain there, they would have
Yes.
devastated that whole place right till Calcutta.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
till that is there, I think Sundarban's protection is all the more important. Like any forest protection is very important, but Sundarbans is all the more important because millions of lives are dependent on that forest because of the climate change, because of the frequency of cyclones and the ferocity of cyclones
Mhm.
increasing. along the eastern coast.
Okay, sir. Now coming back to the series again, like it's 6 part series, and you earlier said that you wanted to make it a 12 part series, and we also feel that there are so many places, and there are so many forest guards working in a, such a limited resources, and it would be wonderful to include them and those ecoregions in the series, and then any plan, any future plans, sir, regarding the series?
They're always filmmakers always have plans, dreams, aspirations, but it has to be met by funders and people who are excited by this. And I think everybody has their now some OTT channel or some TV channels, have to come forward and sponsor the rest of them because there are so many stories to be told.
Yes.
In our research, we had a lot of very exciting stories like Madhya Pradesh and desert,
Mhm.
desert national
Yes.
park, the
Yes.
rainforest of South India,
Yes.
some place like Siberia, rainforest,
Mhm.
evergreen forest. So they were all not covered, and the challenges are very, very different,
Yes.
and especially in a place like the Wayanad, where elephants who can go on a rampage and forest park
Mhm.
has a dark cutout. And so arid areas like Ranthambore and the whole Rajasthan belt. There's so many different exciting places to cover and to showcase the work of our warriors, green warriors, as it were. Uh, someone could be listening in right now and put the bucks on the table.
So one thing that is common, and yeah, it's not a rocket science, like for having fun, for making films, especially the documentary film and environmental films, it's very difficult to generate funds. लोग कह सकते हैं अरे कृष्णेंदु जी का क्या बहुत बड़ा नाम, ही विल कम अप विद सम प्रोजेक्ट और डिस्कवरी और नेशनल ज्योग्राफिक तो फंड कर ही देगी. फॉर एक चलिए इसको मान लेते हैं कि कृष्णेंदु दी इज बिग नेम एंड उनको अब उतनी दिक्कत नहीं होगी. What about the new filmmakers, sir? The new young generation who wanted to become an environmental filmmaker, green filmmaker, वो क्या करे? What you will suggest them? Because when we are young of 22, 23, 24 years old, and then हम कहते हैं कि कर लो दुनिया मुट्ठी में, and then they come up with real life, and they wanted to make a documentary, or फिर there is no one to help them, and then they becoming disheartened. What should they do, sir?
सो पहली बात तो आपकी ये है कि कृष्णेंदु जी बहुत बड़े फिल्म मेकर है, उनको तो मिल ही जाएगा, ऐसा कुछ भी नहीं है. स्ट्रगल तो हर उम्र में करनी पड़ती है, हर जगह पे करनी पड़ती है, मैं भी कर ही
बिल्कुल
रहा
सर,
हूँ. So,
बिल्कुल सर.
having said that, I think end of the day, any film is a story, is a narrative. You're telling a story, and if your story is powerful, if your story is new and it's a new way of telling a story, uh, then I think it attracts funds, it will attract audiences. The problem with conservation is and wildlife is it's a very boring area,
Yes.
extremely boring because what do you say? What do you say about tigers?
Hmm.
What do you say about snow leopard? What do you say about any animal? They do the
Hmm.
same thing.
Yes.
How do you make it exciting? You make a great film on tigers, fine. Then you can't make another film like that because tigers don't do anything else.
Hmm.
So you have to find a story which is different, you know. And for instance, in 2005, when I decided to make a film, my first film on tigers, people say, "What the hell are you going to do?" I mean, every aspect of tiger has been said and done
Yes.
by very big guys. I mean, much bigger than you, much more famous and better skilled than you. So what are you going to do? I said, well, let's see what comes out. In 2007, I made Tiger the Death Count.
Yes.
Then again in 2014, I said, I want to make another film on Tiger. He said, you must have gone crazy completely. Again, another film on Tiger. I said, wait and see. I may have a new story. And then I made a couple of films on tigers outside. Tigers who
Hmm.
are going outside the forest of their life, secret life of tigers outside the forest.
Yes.
Now people say, after seeing the film, a lot of people say, wow, we didn't know. I mean, you mean to say tigers, there are tigers, 30% of tigers outside the forest? Yeah, there are. So, I mean, no one till then had ever attempted that kind of film. Not Nat Geo, not BBC, not
Hmm.
big guys. so-called more skilled and more funded
Yes.
than what I was. Uh, so, so that story, why wasn't it told? You know, why would everybody was going inside the forest and looking for beautiful things? Now, I found that niche. I found Death Chronicles to talk about how the state was operating the tigers. I found
Mhm.
Forgotten Tigers or the Tigers Who Crossed the Line, telling the story of tigers straying outside or living outside.
Mhm.
Now, you have to find those stories. We found
Mhm.
6 episodes of Forest Guards. I mean, they're in your face. They're there whenever you enter the forest. Why
Yes.
haven't why hasn't anyone made those films? So I
Mhm.
think to find those stories, to find
Mhm.
different stories, or the same story,
Mhm.
talk about it in different ways. The
Mhm.
tigers, you see a completely different new story. I think young people should spend their time more in understanding conservation, in understanding the animal world and natural world, and don't take your camera and someone will fool you that okay, there is a new frog on the anvil. So go and
Mm.
spend 2 years on that frog. It's a great idea, but tell a new story. There are millions of films on frogs. It's fantastic
Yeah.
film. Yeah,
Yes.
tell a
Yes.
different story on a frog. Tell a different story on a community interacting with wildlife or forest. Tell
Mhm.
something which is heartwarming. Tell something which is very critical. Tell something which no one knows about it, and it will help. It's not just to tell a story which no one knows, but it will
Mhm.
extend it will support the conservation. It will make you proud or it will make you sad, but it will spur you to action. Do something which is. I think once you get that in your head and look for that interesting story, I'm sure you'll get an audience. I'm sure someone will be interested.
Yeah. Well said, sir. Well said. Last question, sir. uh, what will be uh, अब नया क्या होने वाला है? What is coming from the house of Krishnendu Bose?
आई डोंट नो 30 साल बहुत लंबा सफर होता है वाइल्ड लाइफ कंजर्वेशन करने के लिए अब मैं थोड़ा सा ब्रेक लेके I'm doing other things now. I'm doing a
Yeah.
big documentary on something else which is not wildlife conservation that will
Okay.
occupy me for this year. And
Mhm.
I'm also getting to fiction. I've actually made a short fiction film which is now
Wow.
going to festivals and all that. So
Mhm.
I'm trying out new things, but of course I'm still there. I'm still beginning a new film, new project on conservation, and
Mhm.
let's see if I might have more interesting stories for you next time around. Because filmmaking for me is not just filmmaking and producing something at the end of the day, but also a huge learning experience. It's a very exciting journey. A new film
Yes.
always means exciting journey. You learn new things, you meet new people, and you just learn. For me,
Yes.
that's been the best part of my
Yes.
filmmaking experience.
Ah, thank you very much, sir. It was really delight and wonderful talking to you, sir. We wish that you come up with at least like 100 more these kind of documentaries at least, because they are really very differently made, and I am a big fan. I am a big fan of your films. I'm watching your films till from 2008. Now it's like 13, 14 years, and every time like you. I cannot say that, oh, it's repeating. So every time it's a new way of making film, new questions, new ideas. So I hope that we in coming years we will be seeing more these kind of thought provoking work from you. uh, Thank you very much, sir, for taking your time and talking to us, sir.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you, sir. So, friend, this was the wonderful Krishnendu Bose, and we talked about his documentary series. You can watch these films, Krishnendu sir's documentary on uh, which are being nominated in the 11th CMS Vatavaran International Film Festival and Forum on Hybrid on India Science OTT channel powered by Vigyan Prasar. And tomorrow also we will be coming up with very interesting programs. You can go to cmsvatavaran.org, our website, and you can find in the program sections what programs we are coming up with. Tomorrow we will be having another very interesting filmmaker to talk to, and then we will be having a very young environmental activist talking to us tomorrow morning at 11:30. So do join us. and do go to the India Science OTT channel. Watch these 89 wonderful films exclusively, running there. You won't find these films apart from the festivals. So please don't miss the this opportunity. Take your time, and as you wish, you can go and you can watch these wonderful films. If you have any idea or any suggestion or any comment, please do write to us, and your suggestions will make us work much in a much better way. So at the end of the session, again, I really want to express my gratitude towards India Science team, Vigyan Prasad team, uh, the our other partners, program partners, that is Canadian High Commission in India, uh, the MOEFCC, Government of India, Department of the Forest Department, Government of Haryana, Pollution Control Board, Government of Haryana, Chitkara University, PSCST, IUCNCC, and yes, of course, the CMS Vatavaran team members who are working day and night to make this hybrid mode uh, a success. And I also invite you to participate on on 23rd at 11:30. You can come and participate, join us in the exciting online award function. So please do join us tomorrow at 11:30, and we will be discussing with a very young and dynamic environmental activist. And tomorrow at 4 o'clock, again, we will be talking to one wonderful filmmaker. Have a great day. Thank you very much.